Hey everybody, sorry for a little wait. Just gotta get things cleaned up, set up, all that good stuff. How's everybody doing? Oh, I got someone from India. All right, welcome. If anybody has any burning questions, feel free to ask in the chat and I'll do my best to reply. Can everybody hear me okay? Is it too soft, too loud, just right? Just mess with my settings a little bit here, and hopefully everything's good. Just getting back to this piece. I'm really trying to push this to the end now, trying to get this finalized. So I'm ready to move on. What's up, Deep Progger? Excuse me. So how's everybody doing? Is everybody still in lockdown everywhere? Is anyone getting back to normal? Back to real normal? This new normal BS. I was messing with Photoshop the other day and trying to remember if I have, do I have the right setting? Yeah, I do. Okay, 'cause sometimes we turn on Windows Ink. Yeah, that's right. If I hold it, it'll make that weird circle. Because yeah, if you have Windows Ink on and you're using a Wacom tablet, or in this case Cintiq, you'll get that circle and a delay. But also you'll notice that your strokes won't have the right pressure sensitivity in ZBrush. It'll just be the same thickness and same pressure all the time. Deprogger, where are you at? What country or state? Here in LA, it's still ridiculous lockdown, thanks to our governor. Really need new local government out here. It's terrible. Everything's locked down except I think a few businesses are kind of allowed to open. I think a few have somehow figured out something, but otherwise just regular stores and restaurants can only have outdoor seating still. That's it. You know, they want you to wear a mask everywhere you're around people. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's just getting crazy. It's beyond crazy. Germany, nice. Yeah, it just seems like a lot of this stuff is also just like because the election's coming up, and so everyone's just, you know, it's all just political. I mean, there's so much logic behind a lot of that too. It's like if the government really cared about everyone's mass health and bigger causes of death, I mean, they'd outlaw like fast food and all the products that harm us that are in our food, and a lot of other things they would do if they really cared just about people dying. It's not about that. It's about political power and control. Because more people die all the time from other things like heart disease, cancer, lower respiratory issues, accidental death, suicide. There's a lot of other problems, sadly, that are much bigger than a virus. That CDC's new numbers are like 9,000 or something. That's it. So that's how many people died of it. You know, there's a lot of people who died with it, but that's the difference. And yet they had all those numbers coming out and saying like, all these people died from it. And it was really they just had it, but they weren't even really probably either that affected by it or there was comorbidity. Comorbidity. There we go. So other things that cause death, not this virus. Seems to be about, I don't know. Some people have other problems with it, but that's because they probably have other underlying issues. Most people, look at stats. Like there's some doctor that released a bunch of stats that were really powerful. Like you had more odds of getting hit by a car. You know, if you're young, the younger you are, the like precipitously the odds of you being harmed by this virus or dying from this virus drops. It's less harmful than the flu overall. Like how many people die from it here in the States, and the younger you are, the safer you are. So yeah, it's just frustrating because it's like, man, we just want to get back to normal socialization and normal levels of just healthy interaction, because that's the other side of it is we're all, you know, by design we're social creatures, and if we can't interact normally, it affects people's mental health. And so there's sadly a huge rise in suicides now because of all this. So it's really just causing a lot of other damage, you know, collateral damage. Yeah, it's I feel like it really just, you know, just to appease everybody as best you could, I wish that they would just say if you're afraid, if you're at risk, stay home or wear a mask. Those of us who just want to get back to life and risk our lives to go back to work, to make a living, to provide for our families and for ourselves, let them do it, you know? It's like we never did this with anything more deadly, so why are we doing it with this? It's just clearly it's a political game. Global political game. What's bizarre to me is that some people really deprog, like a lot of people. It seems like there's a lot of people. Maybe it's because I just have a lot of friends who are just artists who live in LA who are very left leaning, and so but it feels like there's a lot of people that I see that it's like they almost get off on tragedy, kind of, which is kind of sick. It's like they almost, I mean, like they almost want to like live in panic or live in fear, or like they almost like the drama, you know. And that's the really disturbing thing to me. That's the really upsetting thing, and like. It's like they want it to be worse than it is. It's almost like they are almost happy about it, kind of. It's really weird. It's really weird. And it means that I think that they're not all... some of them are just not all right up there. I mean, they just seem like they really want it to be, you know, like, oh, so serious all the time, and it's getting worse, and we all need to stay in this state of fear. And it's like, dude, the evidence is not mounting up in that line. It just feels like it's mounting up more and more against... I mean, I love what the UK is doing. I think the UK is having a massive, from what I've seen, a massive amount of rebellion and people standing up and just getting out there and protesting peacefully, genuinely peacefully. Not like here where they're saying it's peaceful and they're burning everything down. But they're protesting there in the UK against the lockdown and against all the ridiculousness that they're able to see with their own eyes. And it's like, I think we need more people here in the States to start doing that, to do it more and to do it in greater numbers. But I think I probably live in the wrong state to see that too, because there's not nearly as many people who think outside that box here in LA. I feel like it's a lot of groupthink here. It's a lot of people that just want confirmation bias instead of piecemealing together their own perspectives, you know. A lot of people just, and I think it's a classical thing with like anyone who wants fame or celebrity or just to be in the club, you know what I mean? They don't want to step on any toes. They don't want to say anything that might harm their following, you know, their numbers or their status or their, they're in with industry movers and shakers and that kind of crap. And so it feels like, I don't know, I feel like there's just a lot of cowards who just don't have any cojones to either think for themselves or say what they really think or to dare to think differently or to question, you know. And that's the thing at the end of the day. It's like, I'm not a one party hard leaning, like no matter what this party says or this group says I agree with. Like, it's never that. I like to think for myself, but often that means I don't agree with everything either party says, you know. I never really agree with everything either party says, but I like to take bits and pieces from each, you know. So I consider myself a little more independent than hardline one way or the other, but I lean more to the right just because it seems to embrace more freedom, more personal freedoms, individual freedoms, and classic, just American FU kind of attitude to the government and to, But I believe in science, of course. I majored in biology in university. Biology and medicine was all my studies until the last year and a half when I double majored in fine art and visual communication with graphic design as a focus, because I always drew as a child and I was always very artistic and creative, but it was always just a hobby and a fun, you know, playtime kind of thing for me. It was never serious during all my education, like primary, you know, years of education, you know, grade school, high school through college. So I'm a firm believer in science, but as such also it's like I want things to be sound, provable, repeatable, you know. I like logic, I like reasoning, and reasoning shouldn't be political, right? That's the thing. That's my whole qualm with all of this, is that people should be thinking for themselves and not looking for what is politically correct, or science is true. Science is irrelevant of. It doesn't care about political lines, parties, any of that. True science is. It's like with the sky. It's blue, right? It's like the grass. It's green. It's just it's truly non-contestable, right? But that means then that when you're really looking for just facts and not confirmation bias or not consensus, because consensus isn't science. Consensus is opinion, right? That's what consensus is. When people all agree on something, it's like you don't have to agree on something that's undisputable, right? And so that's why it's people are like, "Are you a climate denier?" And someone has to be like, "No, I'm not a climate denier. I'm just not a climate catastrophist." You know, it's like these fires are man-made, and bad policing in California, bad forest management. That's it. So you have all these risks. Someone put together a great two-pane image the other day. I saw, like, the one image was January, I think, of last year, a couple years ago, and it said 100 million trees dead. And our president was saying that it's a fire risk. And it was New York Times balking at that, laughing at that, and then mocking that statement. And then the next panel is from, like, I forget when it was. I think it was more recently, and it was just like they were flipping the coin and being like, you know, why wasn't this taken care of? And, you know, everything's on fire, but it's climate change. And it's like, no, dude, this is what people were saying. It's like you just need to take care of the brush and stuff that we've done for decades, you know, but done when it was done properly, it was fine. But out here, they're just not taking care of some stuff, and that's why we have all these fires and all this other junk going on. Arsonists, crazy people out there setting fires, and I mean, they've caught a bunch of these people, but then they let them go because the judges are corrupt. You know, some of the powers that be are corrupt, and so they're just letting these criminals right back out. And one of them, I think it was this guy, DJ Lopez. He was let go, and then he started 6 more fires after he was let go. Like, what the hell, man? This is crazy. It's crazy going on over here, man. It's nuts. It's just, I really just want things to get back to where they were, better than what they were, really. Yeah, it's like people were arguing with me, or trying to argue with me the other day, and it's like, dude, I'm not a political sellout, you know what I mean? It's just give me rational points, you know? So they're like, do you believe in climate change? Of course I do. It's like, the Ice Age happened. What do you call that? Clearly that's climate change, but it happened without our power, you know what I mean? It happened without mankind being industrialized. I think a lot of the planet just does what it does, and we have very little effect on it. I think we can affect our local climate, like the air we walk around in, the air we breathe, you know? So like all the cars that we have driving around us that are putting out bad smog and bad air, I think that we have a lot of effect on, you know, but how that affects the entire planet, I think America has very little effect on that compared to like China and India and, you know, Asia in general. There's a lot more burning and a lot less regulation of fossil fuels and all that. So I think if anyone was to start yelling at people or yelling about something, I mean, other countries are doing as much or more probably damage, you know, as far as just bad air. But I don't know. I have a hard time believing that that we can affect the temperature drastically one way or another on the planet, you know, because a lot of those stats are based on computer models. People don't know this. Like, people think the scientists are just off doing sciencey stuff and they're just proving stuff. They don't know the actual techniques that are used, actually. And a lot of it's based on computer models. So computer simulations, right? That's really what they're based on. And, you know, our computer simulations can barely get local weather right. I mean, so think about the entire planet, the incredible complexity. I really feel that just things ebb and flow. We couldn't start the Ice Age. We couldn't stop it. I feel like maybe we have, from what I think what NOAA, you know, NOAA, I think what that organization said is like, we've seen a 0.16 fluctuation of temperature over the last like 100, 200 years or something like that. It's nuts. It's like 0.16, not even 1 degree Fahrenheit. 0.16. So it's like, I think this is the planet has a natural flow to things. And I think, of course, though, we still need to get away from fossil fuels, but it's to help, you know, all the living creatures and ourselves, you know, as far as like the air we breathe locally, whether it goes up into everything else, you know, it's like, I don't know that it's affecting the temperature that much. That's my contention. And that's why I'm all for like electric vehicles and, you know, greener energy. But then also it's like, how are you harvesting that energy, and then what are you doing with the byproduct? And, you know, there's a lot of other questions that come into play when it comes to environmentalism. And I'm all for it. I'm all for environmentalism. I'm all for saving endangered species, caring for animals, being kind to nature. I'm all for that. I love animals. I love nature. I think human beings can be incredibly destructive, terrible people, terrible creatures. I mean, what we do to animals is horrible overall. It's terrible. I would love to see more harmony between us and nature for sure. I'm not a hunter. I don't enjoy going to shoot deer or kill anything living, really, unless it's trying to harm me, like a scorpion or a snake or something. But I'd rather not harm animals, and much less people. But at the same time, I think it's good that people know how to defend themselves, of course, because that's essential for survival. But no, I'm all for people helping the environment and keeping the animals with us, alive, not endangering them. So yeah, I don't know. So I'm a piecemeal of different views. I'm not above reproach or above critique, you know, or being told that I'm proven that I'm wrong. But I think too many people just want to yell at other people and call them names and be like, you're a climate denier, or you're a this or that. It's just like, they want all these, or you're a something phobe, you know. It's like, good God, no one's afraid of other. That's such a terrible terminology, such a terrible nomenclature. Someone's a phobic of something. No, they're not afraid of a lot of stuff. They may not agree with certain things, but I don't know why I have to categorize people as having irrational fears. That's what phobia is, right? An irrational fear of something. I think a lot of people who disagree with certain groups or whatever, they're not afraid of anyone or anything. It's just they disagree, and that's it. You know, a lot of those people don't wish harm on other people. So I just hate others so much, like, you know, manipulation of groups of people too, by just calling them something. You assign a name to them, and then suddenly they're evil, you know, or they should be, you know, put in a bigot category or whatever. You know, it's just like, guys, we should all be trying to find more common ground and get along and find peace. There's so much violence. It's unbelievable. It's like when you really see what the news doesn't show you, you know, what happens in other countries. And I say this because, speaking as Americans, we have a very peaceful, comparatively. So like what I see happens in Mexico, for instance, or Africa, man. Whew, the violence is insane. Like what happens between cartels. Whew, wow, scary stuff, crazy stuff. So it's like, I think a lot of people here in America have it so good, they don't realize just how rough, how bad it can be when you don't have the kind of law and order that we have. Even though right now it feels like it's bad, it's not nearly as bad as it could be with all the riots and everything. I mean, I want it to stop as it is, but man, it could be a whole lot worse. It could be crazy bad. I just think people really need to do the research, you know, and just get some perspective, like how bad things can really get. It's scary. Humanity's capable of so much harm and so much evil toward each other. You know, it's terrible. So I just keep saying we gotta find some more peace, some more unity here. You know, but that starts with wanting it. You know, that's the first thing, I think, is people really need to start wanting some peace and some harmony, and find some compromise, some common ground, embrace rational thinking. You know, that'd be cool. It's funny, it's like a lot of the people who should have the job of being a politician don't want it, and that's what makes them ideal for it, you know. But we need more scientists. I think we do need more scientists who really are about the pure science and not about politics. But it's like, it's so hard to find unbiased people who just want the truth regardless of what it proves, just truth. But I'm a fan of that, and I just wish more people were more, you know, idealists in that department. Just, you know, crusaders for that, for just fact, regardless of which way it swings or which party aligns with it. Just give us proof of stuff, you know. Give us the straight facts, and let people make up their own minds, and not try to tell them what to think. But I think that's why the media loves to tell people what to think, is because it gives them control, right? It allows them, the trust that people give the media allows them to basically give a part of their heart or their mind to the media then, and it's like they believe then, they trust, and that's dangerous, because I think a lot of the media on all sides, they want a certain amount of control and power over people. They want sway, you know, and that's where I think that's the evil of man kind of corrupting, you know, elements that should just be left to be neutral. Anyway, sorry, I'm just musing. Hey buddy, how you doing? Do you think if you have zero knowledge of 2D sketching or drawing, you can still excel as a sculptor in ZBrush? Zero knowledge of 2D sketching or drawing. Sure, yeah. Of course you can. I think anyone can learn the software. It's more so like, you're really asking, you know, can you, yeah, just a sculptor in general. Yeah, I think you can. I think, though, that there is some sort of correlation for sure between seeing what you're seeing, right? Looking at something and being able to render it 2D versus not. So I think it's important to know how to draw, but it's more so that it's not the skill set itself of just drawing, but it's more so the depth of it, like observation and, you know, being able to correlate between what you see to be output by your hand. I think that's where those two intersect. You know, observation and understanding form. Typically, basic drawing courses teach you that they focus on observation and forms, negative space, proportions, you know, and then getting your speed up to be able to block in, sketch in basic shapes, and then refine them. So there's a lot of parallels for sure, but I don't think directly necessarily you have to be an incredible illustrator, draftsperson, you know, to be able to be a good sculptor. I think they complement each other for sure. But I think you could probably just start learning how to sculpt and become a good artist, and that might actually transition well into becoming a good illustrator, because your observation skills and your comprehension of 3 dimensions will greatly help your drawing endeavors if you ever try to do that afterwards. Yeah, that's a very good point about people talking about thousands of people dying from this virus when it's like 22,000 people died from starvation. Yeah, is that the number? I didn't really know, but I know there's just a tremendous amount of loss of life every day from all kinds of different things, and all of them practically are far greater than anything happening with this virus. You know, that's what I'm saying. That's just, sadly, it's the governments do not care about X amount of numbers of lives lost in general, because if they did, like I said, they would. If they cared about such a small number of people relatively compared to the global population, compared to 7 billion people, you know, if they cared about a few thousand dying from this or that, they would take drastic measures in far other, you know, many other different causes of death, sadly. Like I said, heart disease, number one, so that'll be our food, and creating a exercise regimen that people would be, you know, forced to do, as we are forced to wear masks in certain areas or whatever. I mean, it's, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that would have to be dictated if they really genuinely just purely cared about loss of life. And there's just far greater things at play. Bigger fish to fry is what they're after. They don't care about a small amount of loss of life compared to the population. You know, and there's people who would love to say that we're overpopulated, and I don't buy that at all. I just think that cities are overcrowded. Like, duh, just don't move to a major city. You know, there's a lot of land out there. There's a lot of land that can be turned into housing, and, you know, people just collect in areas because they want to be there, but actual overpopulation, nah, I think that people are just packing into areas and they can spread out. I think that we've got more than enough room on this planet, for sure. No, there's no overpopulation, because it's like, I think it's just distribution, proper, you know, distribution of where people live. And considering how things are shifting now too, we may have, you know, an increase in elderly population and a decrease in younger population because of the reduced number of births overall, at least in America. I think that's how it's going. So we may have a different problem on our hands soon, or we have a lot of elderly folk and not enough people to care for them. I used to work in medicine for a while. I worked in an ER for a couple years, and I worked in geriatrics for like 2.5 years, and I worked in geriatrics for like 5 or 6, maybe more. I blurs together because I worked for one agency, and then I worked for a little bit for a nursing home, and then I worked in in-home nursing care, and then I quit because it was just got depressing. But yeah, it's you know, taking care of the elderly is a big thing. It's a lot of work. My mother's taking care of her mother now. She's 100. And it's like a full-time job, man. She's got a little bit of dementia, a little bit of Alzheimer's. It's hard, you know. It's a lot of work, and it requires a lot of attention. And if you genuinely love the person, which hopefully those who are taking care of them do, as my mom does, you know, it makes it challenging. It really does, because you can't just detach emotionally. Sometimes it's hard, you know, because you love this person and you remember them as a different person. So it's very challenging when you want to reason with somebody and they're acting more like a single-digit child age-wise, and yet you know they have the face of a much older, wiser person. It's rough. Anyway, sorry, tangents. Next, Deprogger. Beginner question. I have trouble using mirror weld on a blockout model made out of sphere and some basic shapes. Can someone tell me what possibly wrong I am doing? Trouble using mirror and weld on a blockout model. Duke Pablo 30. Is that because we only care about ourselves? I'm not sure what that question is referring to. Sorry, specifically, because I went off on these. Is that because we only care about ourselves? In what sense? Needing more people to take care of the elderly. And Uzaris 11111. You're having trouble with your mirrored weld blockout model made out of spheres and some basic shapes. I'm not sure. I mean, you might have to describe a little bit more what the problem is, because usually mirror and weld, if you mean like you have an object and you want to mirror and weld it and you want it to be symmetrical, or the side that you want to have welded isn't working, there's a key to that. I think I might know what your problem is, so I'll just give you a quick demo here. Do a quick save before anything else. It depends if your model is perfectly symmetrical and if it's perfectly centered. Those are the two caveats to this whole process. And the other interesting point you need to know is if you turn on your floor, you see these colored lines, right? RGB, red, green, blue, X, Y, Z. I should say X, Y, Z. So Y is green. So if it's perfectly centered and you hit mirror and weld, bam. See, I just did that and it looks no different except it has that middle line there, right? So, wow, it even has a middle line now, so it's like, doesn't matter. Mirror and weld. But if your object is off center and you don't have symmetry on, so then you can just do whatever. Let's say it's over here and I hit mirror and weld. Oh, make sure this is on too. Like, see, you got local symmetry, right? So if that's not on, and then you hit mirror and weld, bloop, you're gonna get that. Same thing if it's the other way. If you have it past the center line, so use the Y, your green line, as your center line. It's gonna take everything from the positive and mirror it over, right? So this is that cutoff point. You could say this green line. So we hit mirror and weld again. Now it creates a much shorter, stouter, or skinnier star because it's taking whatever is on this side. So whatever's on the X, on the positive X, that is going to be mirrored over to the other side. So you want to make sure that it's centered, and a good way to do that, if you have just one model, or if you have multiple, you can just do the whole, as Joseph Druss likes to say, the pizza boxes. But yeah, if you want to center this, you make sure first you center your gizmo. So let's say you moved your gizmo over here for something, for whatever reason it's not centered. You hit that little drop pin, I think of like a Google drop pin, and that'll center it in your model. And then you can hit home, and that'll center it into the world. And now you can mirror and weld again, and you'll see that it's perfectly symmetrical. So, how do we check if it's perfectly centered? Let me rephrase. How do I make it perfectly centered? That's exactly the problem. Okay, cool. There you go. So, there you are. Yeah, that's a common problem, and sometimes even I forget about that until I stop and think, like, why is this not mirroring? Oh, duh, yeah, sometimes it just takes a second to realize. So once you know that process, it's just something to watch out for, but it's a common challenge, common error. But once you know, you're golden. I don't know why that Nightbot's kicking in. I didn't think you were word spamming at all. But whatever, it's AI. A bot. You're welcome. Glad it helped. Also, don't forget, you can always use your ZModeler tool brush to also edit edge loops and, you know, do all kinds of other, you know, basic topological edits. You know, if you want to move your center line for some reason, you know, you can, there's all kinds of, this is probably not the best, using the star is not the best example. What's that? So, you know, if you wanted to move stuff around, you can always do stuff like this with your ZModeler tool brush. So vertical ones on this kind of sphere are a little weird, but horizontal ones make sense. So you can always adjust them that way, you know, do whatever you need to do. You know, just don't forget you have your ZModeler tool brush. So I don't know what you're doing exactly, obviously, but that can really help a lot. Juan41, thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm getting there. It's been trying to focus. I'm just sort of thinking about like just working my way up here, finalizing this thing, just trying to get the clouds, the rolling out dust essentially, getting all that kind of locked in here, so that I can just move upward. And from here, I think I'm just going to focus on anatomy after these clouds get their anatomy tightened up and looking correct, and her hair. And then it's going to be his wings and connecting his head to his neck, because it's not exactly there. It's just sort of, you know, just cut off and laid on top. Fixing his expression a little bit, you know. And I think we'll be close to done then. So, almost there. But yeah, I was just trying to get this stuff sort of tidied up. So, sorry if anyone's like, it's not that fun to watch clouds being modeled. I know it's a little tedious. But this is the work. This is the way. Anyone who's seen the Mandalorian. I'm a nerd. I'm very curious what's going to happen in this next season too, because I heard the actor who portrays, I'm sure you guys have heard that rumor probably too, for those of you who follow any movie news, the actor who portrays the Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal, I believe, apparently he quit. Apparently he had like a big falling out with the execs because he wanted his face to be, you know, shown more, which seems like super egotistical, and I would hope it's not true. It's a rumor, but a lot of people have been passing it around, so maybe it's true. I don't know. Like anything, like any fake news, man. You hear it enough times, you tell people to believe whatever they want, you know, whatever you want them to believe, and you say it enough times and act like it's for sure, and then people just start to mindlessly believe it. So who knows? I don't know if it's true or not. But if that's true, that really looks bad for that dude, because, man, I think things are hard enough as it is during a pandemic, like, for actors, right? Because sets are really restrictive, and productions aren't going buck wild. It's like, I mean, I'm sure he probably has more than enough money after Game of Thrones and some other Netflix movies he's been in, and other movies he's done, and, you know, Wonder Woman, he's in that, and he was in Triple Frontier with a bunch of other actors. So yeah, I think he probably is fine, so it's not like he's probably desperate for work, but still, it just seems like if that's the case, man, if he's that much of an ego, it's like, ugh. You're just gonna get a, you know, you're gonna get a chip on your shoulder, and then people are gonna know you're difficult to work with, and then next thing you know, people won't want to hire you, and then you become Katherine Heigl, you know, or a bunch of other people who just are notoriously hard to work with because they have giant egos, huge heads that can't fit through doorways. Dude, you're an actor. You pretend for a living. Chill. You're not saving lives. You're not curing cancer. You don't deserve that much respect. You are replaceable. I think Ricky Gervais's Golden Globes opening monologue was last year's. Was it last year or the year before? I forget now. I think it was last year, yeah. It was like the monologue to end all monologues, man. That was accurately put Hollywood in its place. Where can I start learning your kind of sculpts from basic or making historic statues like zoos or ancient Greek statues? Any resources you could recommend that can help me learn faster? You know, thanks for asking. That's a good question, but I don't really... I think a great resource if you want to find some of these things in a very relevant way. Excuse me. Look up. Sorry, got the burps. Look up some virtual tours of museums right now. I know we can't really go to a lot of museums. I think most of them are closed. But look up pieces that are in the Louvre, right? In France. Look up classic statues from some of the best. From some of the most historic and renowned museums all over the world. They'll have incredible sculptures by renowned artists, classic sculptors, classic artists like Michelangelo, and Canova and many others. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. But look up. Let's just start looking up. See if you can. I've never really thought to look for them because I've been to many museums. Not all of them. I haven't been to the Louvre yet, unfortunately. I'd love to go, but Google museum collections. The best. I'd say look up the best museum sculpture collections. Start googling things like that. Start looking that up. And I'm sure you'll find some pretty good results. I fell in love with the piece. For those who maybe, I think Uzeris, I think you've seen my stuff from before. You'll see, my original piece that I did which was a ripoff of a tribute piece to. Ripoff sounds terrible. I was inspired by the original piece by Antonio Canova, and I just saw that piece, and that's. I fell in love with it. I just thought it was beautiful and epic and romantic, and it made me want to know more about how it came to be, and that's why I created the original piece based on Canova's work, and that led me to make it this revision, this revised reimagining of his work. The originals. Just type in Cupid Psyche. There you go. But even just doing searches for this and then moving onward, I mean, you'll find, you'll find other pieces then that will connect. Things that'll be similar, and you can just go down a rabbit hole from this. I mean, like here's some little detail of the vase behind them. But yeah, you'll just see so many other iterations and copies and different angles, different views, all that kind of cool stuff. But yeah, I think just Google, man, it's your friend. But yeah, that's what inspired this one. So yeah, I'm sorry there's not a better answer maybe than like go to this one site where you can find about all. But again, if you wanted to, just find about Greek mythology, I'm sure. I mean, I haven't really cared to look up all the stories of that, but Icarus, it's a classic one. I'm trying to remember all. There's so many, But yeah, I mean, just again, look up Greek mythology. If you just want to start focusing on some of those classic mythos characters and stories. Look up classic Greek mythology. You can look up. For some reason, my brain goes because I a few years ago I got the. It was this DVD collection of The Storyteller, which was the actor John Hurt, and it was a collaboration between the Jim Henson group, right? The Jim Henson workshop and live action actors, and so basically it was Jim Henson's sort of take using really not so much Muppets, but like just special effects and puppetry and different a whole like kit bash of different techniques to tell these really unique, beautiful, classic fairy tales and Greek mythology. So I think the first season was just classic fairy tales. I think I don't think they even did Grimm's. Maybe they did some of Grimm's fairy tales, but they just did a bunch of different fairy tales, really classic stories. Stuff that we've all, I think, most of us have grown up with, or those of us who are a little older, definitely remember hearing as children, and beyond. And then the second season was all Greek mythology with a different actor. John Hurt was out, sadly, but it was still great, And they had like the Minotaur, the story of the Minotaur in that maze, and Icarus, and they were all dark too, man. I mean, they didn't pull punches too, which was great. I love that. I'm a fan of I loved Don Bluth's films, Land Before Time, Secret of Nim, American Tail, All Dogs Go to Heaven. Those 4 or 5, whatever. Those were it's 4, right? Yeah. Those are my favorites as a kid. I liked them more than Disney, honestly. I liked them because they were darker and the stakes felt more real, and it wasn't just about princesses, and it was a little bit more relatable, I guess, for a dude who liked classic, more a little bit more weighty stuff, not just whimsical fairy tales, in my case, but I liked stuff that was a little bit darker, of course. So yeah, Land Before Time, Secret of Nim. Land Before Time isn't that dark. I mean, it's dark, I guess, because Littlefoot's mom dies. Spoiler, in front of him. Yeah, it's dark, I guess. Yeah, they always liked some dark stuff, but it's probably not much more dark than Lion King. But yeah, maybe it is darker because now that I think about it, it's like Littlefoot just goes on this long, depressing journey. There's very little happy moments, unlike Lion King, where it's like his dad dies, then you get a sing along like 15 minutes later. They really pick up the mood pretty quick in Lion King, and I'm not knocking Lion King. I love the original Lion King tremendously. And I was excited to be able to be asked to work on it for a little while last year too, or 2 years ago, whatever it is now. Yeah, 2 years ago. Everything's blending together. I'm just bummed it didn't turn out as great as the original, but still, it's still cool to be a part of it in some way. Anyway, so yeah, it's so anyway, I was thinking about the Storyteller because of Greek mythology, and sorry, I'm going with tangents, and the stories were great. They did a really good job, and of course, certain things weren't as maybe iconic or as realistic as they could be, both because they were trying to make somewhat of a family show, and I think that budget, time, all that didn't a lot, and it just super hyper realistic. Everything wouldn't have fit their the stylistic choice, the aesthetic they were going for. But yeah, you can look up some of that stuff. It's just a beautiful way a fun way to experience some of those classic stories and get exposed maybe to some some other ideas that you may not have thought of, but yeah, just Google Greek mythology. And I'm sure you'll find a lot of, look up Egyptian mythology too. That can be pretty cool. Look up some of those characters. The Egyptian gods are interesting characters. I remember I was working on sight and sound production called Moses, and it's based on the biblical story of Moses. And they, wanted to show a lot of the Egyptian gods as they were built, statues, and then they asked me to do some stylization here and there, and so I got to do a bunch of them. I did Horus, which was the, I believe, the god of war, and it's like a hawk, the head of a hawk, or an eagle, and who else? Anubis, which is the jackal. I think, isn't Anubis the god of war? I forget what Horus is. I don't remember all their assignments for what their duties were as gods, but yeah, it was cool to do a bunch of them and learn a little bit more about Egyptian mythology just through working on Moses. Again, interesting characters, like humanoid creatures, So I think you can see some of that in my portfolio too. I might have some of that in there. I know I have the Moses statue built in there, but there's a bunch of other stuff too that I think I have a few other images of one of the Greek gods. I think I have Horus in there. Oh, phone call. I should mute my phone. Apologies. Has anyone else been getting a lot of spam calls lately? Like, I'm finding, man, it's like either they're political calls or like people saying like, are you gonna vote for who are you gonna vote for? This November, or we need to defeat so and so, and you need to side with us. I get voicemails, I get text messages. There's just a lot of spam crap too. It's like, ugh. I feel like somebody's on overtime, man. Some groups are on overtime to try to get people to fall for scams as a way for them to make money during this pandemic. That's what it feels like. It's annoying as hell. just using inflate here to just bulge some of these areas out a little bit more, kind of give them a little bit more volume and shape. And then I'm using the /3 brush, and then I bring down the Z intensity a bit so that it doesn't carve in too deep. But that really helps create some nice breaks. It's a very predictable, natural flow to it for me. What was your favorite childhood games? Have you played Stronghold Crusaders or Age of Empires? Those were like real-time strategy games, right? I was never into those, actually. Sorry, RTSs were never my thing. I was a little bit more, I guess, mainstream, mainline for that kind of stuff. I mean, like childhood, man. I grew up. We started with. My dad had Pong, right? So we had Pong. Played that when I was like single-digit age. And then I think we eventually got an Atari secondhand. And then it was one Christmas, my dog ran away, and my mom felt horrible, and so they knew I wanted a Sega Genesis, and so then they bought that as a way to make me feel happier, even though my dog ran away at Christmas. And then like 2 weeks later, our dog was found, so that was like, woo, double whammy. That was hilarious. It was so sad and so scary initially, of course, but it was like, hey, wow, a miracle, a Christmas miracle. We got a Sega Genesis, and my dog came back, Mikey. But anyway, Sega Genesis was a huge childhood love. Loved Echo the Dolphin. Loved Sonic the Hedgehog, especially number 2 and 3. Well, they were all fun. Streets of Rage. Lemmings. I love playing Lemmings. I just thought Lemmings was great. I remember my sister and I, we play a lot of, it's Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck in the World of Illusion. That was a really fun game on Sega Genesis. I think they have it in like one of their Sega Genesis collections now. You can get in like Switch or PS4 or any of the major systems on a computer too. But yeah, Mickey and Donald in the World of Illusion was really cool. So those are some childhood favorites for sure. I know, and my sister and I, we went through Phantasy Star 2, I believe, on Sega. And then Phantasy Star 3, I think is where we started. And then we went on to Phantasy Star 4. I don't know if we ever I think we got to like near the end of Phantasy Star 3, but I don't think we ever beat it. And then I think my sister beat Phantasy Star 4. And those are classics. Then, I mean, my neighbors had Super NES growing up. We were little, and our neighbors were really fun. So we'd always play a bunch of games outside. We'd play badminton and baseball and tag and hide and go seek and climb trees and all that stuff. But we'd also have a balance, and we'd play our video games together. And we'd often play Super NES on there. So we'd play like Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Street Fighter 2. He'd kick my ass in Street Fighter all the time because obviously he had the game and he was really good and I sucked. And then what else? Mario Kart, of course. Mario Kart was so much fun. Those are the big ones that I remember playing a lot as a kid. The Atari ones. Oh, and there was this one PC game. I think it was called Montezuma's Revenge. No joke. And that was like, it was like a really hard, like, it would be, I think what Super Meat Boy kind of is, like harder levels of Super Meat Boy. That's kind of like what Montezuma's Revenge was. Pretty fun, crazy little game. It looked like a little Indiana Jones character running around, and you'd have to get keys and avoid like buzzsaws or like getting grinded up in different things. And it was really simple. It was like an 8-bit game, but like done really well for what it was. I remember playing that on a PC on my cousin's PCs back when I was a single-digit age again, I think, or maybe 10. Probably younger though. I think it was younger. It's like late 80s when I played that. And then, of course, in '93, man, Doom came out, and Doom was my shit. Like, that was... Oh, my God. I played so much Doom. I skipped over Wolfenstein. I found out about Wolfenstein later, like, years after or maybe not years, but like maybe like I don't know, 6 months or a year after I found out about Doom. Some friends of mine were like, "Oh yeah, we were playing Wolfenstein before that." And I was like, "What's Wolfenstein?" Wasn't that into it. I mean, it's always cool to kill actual Nazis from the past, but I never got into Wolfenstein as much as I got into Doom. Doom was awesome. Still love it, and the remake, you know, Doom 2016 was fun, but man, Doom Eternal, wow, this modern version was awesome. Came out this year, so good. But yeah, those are my childhood games, really. Those are the big ones. Jurassic Park on the Sega Genesis. Oh my god, I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan. That movie changed my life for sure, but it profoundly affected my life. But the game was a lot of fun, man. The Sega Genesis ones, the regular one, and then there's the Rampage edition, which was like they sped up the frame rate and had more animations. And if I'm not mistaken, they used Phil Tippett's stop motion puppets that he used for the animatics. They used that for the raptor. So they pose raptor, they photograph it, and then they pose it again. So they basically do stop motion to create the sprites in the game. So they look like digitized photoreal dinosaurs, at least mostly like the T-Rex, the raptor, I think the pterodactyl. The Triceratops looked pretty, and then I think they had also the same technique for the Dilophosaurus in the Jurassic Park game. And they might have done the same thing for the Brachiosaurus. I'm not sure. I think the Brachiosaurus and Triceratops are both pixel art, but very well done. And then when you played as the raptor, of course you look like that. But when you played as Alan Grant, they filmed a real person, a real actor dressed as Alan Grant, running and jumping and doing all the motions, and then added that to the whole sprite control so that you were playing as what looked like kind of digital photoreal characters. That was really cool. So I was really, as an artist, I always really admired the work they put into the Sega Genesis Jurassic Park game. It was hard, man, and it felt like kind of like an unfinished, like they rushed it to market, which of course most film adaptation games are rushed to market and usually pretty crappy. But for what Jurassic Park was, it was pretty functional, and I really enjoyed it as a kid. Played that nonstop as well. Echo 1 and 2, man, those were really fun games. What about you guys? You guys have any favorite games as kids that you remember? Or maybe that was part of the plan, make your dog disappear. That was my plan all along, yeah. They made a Tony Hawk remake recently, but it's bad. Oh, really? It's bad? I heard people saying it was good, that they liked it, 1 and 2. I remember people saying 2 is better. I played a little bit of Tony Hawk. I think I played the demo a lot, but I got into Tony Hawk like way after it came out, because I think they had a remake of it come out on Dreamcast, right? Or a port of it. And so I played it a bit on Dreamcast. But I never cared enough to be like, I have to buy this game, because I was never into skateboarding, really. I was more into martial arts and running and basketball, and those are more my interests in athletics as a kid. But yeah, Echo was kind of my interest in, sort of kicked off my interest in the ocean and the sea and ocean life. Maybe ask more questions about dolphins and how smart were they really, and it's all that stuff. So yeah, this game's had a lot of effect on me. Man, I love Sonic 2. Played that game so much in the summer of '93. Resident Evil. Oh yeah. When I say childhood, I'm thinking like young childhood. But I think of my teenage years, that was PlayStation 1. My neighbors had PlayStation 1, and we had N64 and Dreamcast. So yeah, we played a hell of a lot of Resident Evil 2. I love Resident Evil 2, man. That was a super favorite of mine as a kid, as a teen. I played a little bit of Dino Crisis. Yeah, I know a lot of people loved it. I played a little bit of Dino Crisis. But amazingly, I don't know, it's funny. It's even though it has everything I should love, because I love Resident Evil, played all of them. Huge fan of the Resident Evil series for sure. Definitely curious how Resident Evil Village is going to be. Because Resident Evil 7, I played it, I own it, but I wasn't like blown away by it. I just thought it was okay. It was passable. I mean, beautiful graphics, like amazing visuals, but it just didn't feel. Just didn't. It was creepy, but it still just didn't. I guess because you weren't playing as the main characters, like the staple Chris or Claire or Leon or Rebecca or Jill. Since we weren't playing as any of the main guys or gals, I just didn't really feel that connected to it. Like Ethan, like, you know, who's this? Like, new guy looking for his girlfriend. This is weird. I mean, I appreciate the supernatural element. It just didn't feel like a true Resident Evil game to me. 7 just felt like it was like a horror game, and they just slapped the Resident Evil brand on it and threw Chris in at the very end. And Chris didn't even look like Chris. You know, he looked like a totally different actor. So I feel like they could have done a better job with that personally. But I still played it, still enjoyed it for what it was. Now 8 looks like they made Chris at least look more like Chris, but they changed the voice actor because they didn't bring back Roger Craig Smith. I don't know why. They should have. Because Roger Craig Smith is awesome as... He's awesome in everything he does. I love that guy. But it would be cool to see him come back as Chris and voice Redfield. Anyway. So I saw the trailer for 7 and... or 8, I mean. And we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, it looks good. Hopefully it just feels a bit more like Resident Evil. It looks like it's going to feel more like Resident Evil 4 because of the whole village setting and all that, which is cool. But yeah, I just don't know if the first person thing is weird. Like when I was playing Resident Evil 7 in VR, it got so unnerving at times where I was involuntarily doing certain motions. And I'm a very like hardcore like horror person. I can handle a lot of blood and gore and guts. Like I've seen the real thing, of course, but like I can handle a lot of the scares and whatever, and I don't really freak out. But this just made you feel like your brain just registers it as real, or at least that you're in that, you know, you're somehow experiencing it for real. In that it just made my anxiety rise to a level where I just wasn't comfortable or happy playing in VR, so I just wanted to play on the screen. That was fine. But it's funny because I didn't think that I would get to that point where it's like I just don't feel as the level of anxiety and tension I was feeling with VR was not as pleasant as the levels you feel when you're playing on a screen. I don't know. It feels more like excitement when you're playing on the screen, but when you have the set on, you really feel like you're looking around in there. It just feels more claustrophobic in a sense, and it feels more like, you know, you're there or you're in that space, and it just it creates anxiety versus excitement. And so I eventually was just like, yeah, I'm gonna stop playing Resident Evil 7 in VR and just gonna go with good old TV screen for now. But other games in VR are great, you know. Anyway, Final Fantasy on PS1, yeah, that's a classic. I remember playing Final Fantasy 7, and I really fell in love with 8, actually. Just the design, the aesthetic, the look of the characters, all that. I always liked that a lot. But I never beat either one, actually. One reason me landing on ZBrush and 3D modeling is because of PC. Yeah, playing PC games. Sure. Sensei. How could you... fall down to VR? Fall down to VR? I'm not sure what you mean. How could I fail on like playing the game in VR? Other games are fun in VR though, for sure. I need to get a PC headset eventually so I can play Half-Life Alyx, because I'm a huge Half-Life fan. That was another game that I guess during my young teen years, Half-Life 1 and then Half-Life 2. And then I played all the episodes of Half-Life 2 where they left on a huge cliffhanger, which we still need. Valve, make Half-Life Episode 3 already, god damn it. We want closure. It's so torturous. But yeah, Half-Life Alyx looks awesome. But I heard people saying you have to teleport. You can't, like, walk. You have to, like, jump to spaces, which I hate. I hate that in VR games. I like to be able to walk. I don't know why they did that. Hopefully they've enabled some way to walk in the game now. I don't know. Has anyone out there played Half-Life Alyx? At this point, do you still just teleport, or can you walk around in the game? Looks like a beautiful game, though. My god, the graphics and the voice acting and the pacing all seems really good. It seems like they did a really good job overall. It's just that motion is weird. I get it. It's for people who are motion sick. They don't want to increase their challenge of playing the game by adding nausea, but man, for those of us who are fine with VR, I would love that they would take that out, or at least, you know, provide an option for plane without teleporting. Sorry for interrupting. How can I get a 4K screenshot for work in progress in ZBrush? You just got to set your document size to 4,000 pixels, right? So you just want to do document. Where are we going here? Oh, come on. So you just want to go here and set your, to turn off Pro, which is proportional. Pro stands for proportional. Set your width to 4,000, whatever. What is it, 4,096, right? And then your height to, I forget what that is now. It's like, what is it, 3,000 something, right? 2,000 something, I forget, whatever. Set your desired pixels there. And then you just want to do, I guess, render. Is that right? Yeah, I guess you could just do a render out of here then, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've had to do just like try to do a regular, good old work in progress shot. But yeah, I think, or you could just, what's the other way you could do that? I forget. What's the other way you can just do like a quick snapshot? I feel like I'm forgetting. Is it movie? No, because movie's just movie, right? Man, it's been so long since I've just tried to do that. Wow, yeah, brain fart, man. It's been so long. Yeah, I think it would just be render then, right? Because once you have your
pixels established, it'll render your pixels. So like if your canvas is bigger, you know, because 4K will be bigger than this space, right? So you can't just take a screenshot of this, because like if I do actual, that's actual. And if I zoom out, you can see like, you know, my canvas is actually slightly bigger than the viewport, but it'll always be limited to the pixels of your screen here, right? So please excuse if you hear the truck in the background. I'm sorry about that. It's trash day here, so they're picking up the trash. Yeah, so I think that's the way you do it, though. Is you'd have to set your document to the size you want it to be here. And, oh yeah, this is it. I think then you could just do here, right? What am I thinking? God, sorry, brain fart again. So yeah, set your proportions here, and then you got your export screen grab there. There you go. Done. So there you go. Just like we have a flatter side and curved sides, I'm making sculpting characters. How you decide your curves and I think you mean what? Additioning these pop-ups? Adding these pop-ups? I'm not sure what you mean. You, Sarah, you might want to clarify. Just we have a flatter side and a curved side. I'm making sculpts on characters. How do you decide your curves and adding these pop-ups? Street, or ST, you're welcome. Okay, so yeah, so how do you decide your curves and adding these pop-ups? I'm not sure what you mean by pop-ups, though. You mean just like... It's funny, I'm not sure what you mean by you know, you have a flat side and a curved side. I mean, you're talking about like human anatomy? I mean, there's... You know, human anatomy is dictated by reality. As far as you just mean in general, I'm not sure what you're talking about though. As far as having a flat side and a curved side, I think if you're just talking about nature, how nature has, you know, like your legs, your shin is flat, your calf is curved, for instance. I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking. You might want to clarify a little bit for me. Excuse the hat here. No, the bottom part. Oh, excuse me. You mean down here? The cloud bubbles? Oh, okay. So you're asking how do I... the cloud bubbles. Or you're just saying like, oh, what's curved and what's not, as far as like... Oh, okay. How do I decide? I mean, it's somewhat from memory, from reference, and just letting it evolve. Maybe that's why this is taking too long, is because I'm just not directly referencing like one photo. You know, I've kind of looked at different things, and then I'm just kind of going off of memory, which is probably a big no-no, I guess, in some ways. I don't know. But that's the thing. There's certain rules to it, but it's such a, you know, clouds are just amorphous. So as long as I feel like as long as it looks right, like it's spreading out. I'm not sure exactly what you want to know though. They look like pop-up bubbles to me. Pop-up. So you mean like more so like why is Edward crying? Hilarious. Pop-up. You mean like packing? You think you mean like bubble wrap? Is that what you're trying to say? Like my sculpts look like bubble wrap? Okay, yeah. Well, that's not good. Yeah, they're maybe a little too even. So I'm not really sure what the question is though. I've just been kind of pulling things out as they come along. Yeah, some things need improvement for sure. But even just little adjustments like that, I think, help. But yeah, I still need some... that's what this whole thing's been about, is just tidying up the base here and just trying to get this all sorted. Edward 4557, what's up?
Is that an Edward here in LA, or is that another Edward? I'm curious, because I know a bunch of Edwards now. It's too many Edwards in my life.
Edward Maya. Good evening.
So yeah, does that answer? I don't know. I'm not sure what your question is though about how do I decide the flat side versus the curved side. We're still not really sure what you mean though by that on the how that relates to the like flat side meaning internal, or you mean like the side that's connected to the rest of the cloud mass? I'm not really sure.
I couldn't type in the chat again. No, Edward, nighttime. I'm confused, Edward. If you have to texture these, what will be your approach? Just some marbles and dirt type material. Oh, marble. I meant marble and dirt type material. Make a canvas bigger and bigger until you couldn't see the ears. Nighttime means I'm on the other side of the earth.
Ah, okay. So, Edward, are you in China? Or are you in, where's night right now? I guess it'd be Asia, right? But we're kind of like we're more than halfway through our day now, right? So, Russia? I don't know.
Make the canvas bigger so you can't.
I don't know what you mean by that, Edward. Canvas is pretty big. Saying you want to see the face? I'm not sure what you're asking here.
His work is so good. coming together, I guess. Thanks. Yeah. But texture-wise, it's just gonna be, it would just be one material. So like, I can show you even. I was gonna do this, getting close to the end here anyway. So, got another like 12, 15 minutes to go. I'm gonna open up Keyshot here quick and show you guys. Let's see here. It's opening up now. Keyshot. The Keyshot window doesn't want to comply for some reason. It's weird. I can't resize the Keyshot window right now. What the hell? Keyshot, you gotta fix your stuff, man. What the heck? Does not want to let you resize the window. Weird. Frustrating. Anyway, let's deal with it. So here we are in Keyshot. This isn't quite a marble material though. This is just like a hard plastic that I'm using. And I'm using the GPU and the denoiser, I believe. Yeah. So it'll look kind of like muddy or like smeared, like smudged for a second, and then it'll kind of tighten up in resolution. This gives us a little bit more of a better idea of what it will look like in the real world. We're getting there. Yeah, so what do you guys think? You liking that so far? Yeah, directly in Keyshot, no added paint. I mean, for this one, I'm not rendering this so much as I'm gonna be printing it, so it's textures and whatnot don't matter. UVs are irrelevant. So yeah, I mean, just like the original, it's just all one, marble piece basically, or I mean, it's just all the same stone. It's the same thing I'd be doing for this. Is just kind of having it look more like a classical sculpture, not really going for the realistic materials kind of look for this one. Deprogger, thank you. Yeah, it's coming together. I feel like their right side, our left side here, needs to probably be a little bit more detailed. I don't know. Feels a little too simple still. But we're getting there. And let's pause this. Minimize that. Thanks, man. For us noobs, this is astonishing and amazing work. You serious? Thanks, man. Well, there's a lot of other really good work on ZBrush Central. I mean, I'll tell you that. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Stuff that blows this out of the water.
You know, I think this can compete with some of it, but once this is done, I think this will be a nice piece for sure. But man, there's a lot of talented artists out there, man. There's a lot of gifted, you know, sharp people working in ZBrush for sure. You know, so it's important to remember there's always someone better. So you just do your best and leave it up to people to cling to what they like. But thanks, I appreciate the kind words, I really do. So it was nice to hear that people like your stuff. I felt pretty good about this piece in general when I came up with the idea of making another, you know, sequel to the original, just because it's based on such good, like the original piece is such a classic and such a beautiful, beloved sculpture that it was kind of felt like it was kind of like a hard to lose kind of thing. As long as the anatomy's fine and the poses are good, it's sort of like it feels like it's hard to make a bad piece out of it. You know what I mean? So I felt comfortable. I felt confident. I think stepping into this piece because the initial idea I felt was so strong. It was just such a good, strong foundation for creating, you know, a visual story. I felt pretty confident that it would be well received in general because of that. I think that's true for a lot of art in general, whether it's a film or a book or anything that's telling some sort of story. If you have a really solid foundation, you have a good idea, right? The idea is really good. Of course, it can be screwed up in the execution, but I think it's still like, it's like you can't build a house without the foundation, I feel. So like you can't really tell a great story without a really good basis, right? A good premise, a good synopsis. And so I feel the same thing is like true for sculpture. If you want to have a really strong piece, I think you have to have a good idea. You know, you have to have often it's not, I mean, it's not like a hard line, of course, because some people come up with beautiful pieces and they're just sort of like kit bashing and mashing stuff around and dynameshing and just sort of, you know, jamming. There's like jazz. It's like artistic jazz sometimes, and that works too. So it's like there's no one route, of course, to a great work of art, not by any means. But I found for me, a lot of times I like to concept out or plan out and let things really define. But I find I usually have a very clear picture or usually a really strong idea in my mind, in my head already, before I get to work. So that once I start manifesting it, I think it just improves from there. You know, I find that it just gets better and more exciting for me as I work on it. And sometimes it doesn't get to the full potential that I'd like it to, or that I think, or that others could think it could be at. And that might be because of time, it might be because I just have to stop, or, you know, or like the product has to be delivered, so it just has to go out as it is, or whatever, you know. So there's always different reasons for that. But yeah, so I always wind up, you know, doing the best I can for the time I have, and I always want people to be excited, impressed, moved in some way, you know, positively, hopefully. But yeah, I like there to be a sense of excitement and discovery. I like there to be some of that too, where you the more you stare at one of my pieces or you look for things, you start seeing other details, or, you know, whether it's rotating a sculpture or it's an image that has primary images and then secondary ones and then tertiary ones. Like, I like having those different tiers of detail and, you know, just kind of like bonus content. It just gives people more to see, a little bit more to chew on, you know what I mean? Like just a fuller meal, a bigger meal when it comes to consuming art, for that analogy. It's also interesting just to step back, you know, and look at things from a distance too, and also helps to go into key shot and see what it would look like under more realistic lighting. I find that all just helps complement, your work as you move along and try to figure out, you know, how things should look. Turning on perspective helps too. It's definitely important. So you get a little bit more accurate view of what it'll look like in the real world. Joey G, thanks, man. Do you mind to share a bit your Moses statue? Yeah, sure, I can do that. When do I plan to print this? Soon. I mean, you know, probably like in October, I guess, since we're nearing the end of September. But yeah, I mean, I really hope to be done with this in the next couple weeks here. Honestly, because I'm kind of getting tired of it. As much as I'm enjoying like how it's coming together, I feel like I see the end already, and it's just a matter of just taking the hard work steps, you know, just putting the work in there just to get there. And so it's just kind of like, you know, it's just kind of getting old. It's just like I'm getting kind of tired of it. Yeah, let me see. Moses statue. I really need to throw some of that stuff up on ZBrush Central too. There's a lot of my work that I haven't put on. Like, I haven't been on ZBrush Central in forever, and I've was really lucky to be asked to be a part of the beta, and I have to finish that image that I've been working on slowly for now like a month or two. It's the boy from The Last Guardian for my short film pitch piece that's based on that. So I gotta finish him up. He's pretty much done. I just need to finish the environment. The environment's really all that needs to be done now for that piece. But yeah, this is the Moses statue that I worked on when I worked at Sight and Sound. It's me in the center, Josh Enck, one of the presidents of the company. This is Dave, forget his last name. He was the CNC engineer. So we were the three that primarily worked on, like, well, I was the one who was working with Josh specifically just to design, right? So that he was saying what he liked, what he didn't like. But overall, he gave me a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to create this. And he liked a lot of what I produced already, so there wasn't a lot of revision, really. It was more so like he gave him a few samples, different facial expressions, and he already told me the pose he wanted, because there was a poster that they had an actor, you know, go in front of the camera with their back to the camera and hold the staff up when he parts the Red Sea, and you know, the fan going, and you know, they wanted they had just a little bit of billowing in his cloak, and so I added a whole lot more to kind of make it almost more superhero like. And then a lot of these other staff members are people who worked in the engineering department, who created like internal infrastructure using SolidWorks and other programs to create a metal internal skeleton, so that this will be stable. Some of them were also men and women who would use the different carving tools for the base. So I sculpted the entire base in ZBrush, and they printed the small version of it. But then I think they did a lot of hand carving of foam on the base. But then they CNC'd the words out of the base too. But this is what the original piece looked like, just in ZBrush. Oh, let me fix this for you. And it was really rewarding. You know, it was really cool, especially as a younger artist. This was back in like 2013, 2014, 2013. Yeah, like 2012. Yeah, 2013, I believe. Oh yeah, duh. It says right there, copyright. But yeah, so this is the different angles, of course, you know, and really try to get that flow in the cloak, in his garments and his belt and all that, kind of really get the wind flowing. And you know, this was way before, of course, ZBrush had the cloth techniques. So gave him different expressions here. One of kind of like subtle, sad awe. One of like a war cry. And then one of like very stoic, and then he went with a war cry in the end. And I looked at a bunch of different gentlemen's faces, and the hair was meant to look like stone. Like they really told me, you know, you want it to look like a stone statue. That's why the hair looks the way it does. And I looked at like I remember I was looking at photos of. I remember the one that stuck out the most was what's his name? Anthony Hopkins
from when he was playing Odin from Thor. We had like a whole mood board or like a facial board that I used. Like I kind of took bits and pieces of all these different actors and models' faces, older gentlemen, to kind of get a certain look in the face. And this is the original 3D printed statue on a Z Corp 450. So it's like it's a polystone. So it's a terrible machine really as far as just the quality. I mean, it looks okay, here, but doesn't handle thin areas very well. As you can see, there's a little hole there. Kind of works though to make it look tattered, so that kind of was fine. But this was just proof of concept, just to see what it looked like. But it was such a fragile material. I mean, it's like really like brittle porcelain. Any little touch to certain areas that are moderately thin, it would just break, and you have to super glue it back together, which is a real pain in the ass. So resin printers are just so much better, or even FDM, back then. So this is then. There's one step in between here that I'm missing because I think I couldn't find the photo at the time when I was putting this together years ago. But this is the CNC'd model. It's been printed out, or I should say carved out. So the CNC machine is computer numeric control, so it mills out. You think of it a big giant block of styrofoam, like a block that's like 8 feet by 8 feet by 8, just this giant cube of styrofoam, and you just put it into this machine, and it has, locks it into place, and then it has these drills where it's either just like a 6-axis one, or then you have some that are many more and that have like a robotic arm where it can like drill, and like it knows where to go around the object and kind of carve in like almost like a human hand sculpting. So it removes material to form something. And so they use like a higher density foam for the face and the head so that you can get more detail and that's crisp. And then lower density for areas where it's like, it's a little bit, it'll fall apart a little bit more, and it just sort of gives it a more, you don't need as much density because it just doesn't need as much detail essentially. And that's how they kind of dictate, what parts get what amount of attention and what kind of, TLC. But here, this gentleman's using a knife to carve into the hair in the back, and he's holding a smaller version of my 3D print there of the sculpture, so that he can get some of that detail in, because undercuts are really hard or pretty much impossible for certain CNC machines to do, because it's just, it's in an area where you have to use a human tool, a human hand to really get in there and deliver that kind of detail and remove that kind of material in that fine kind of process. So in between these two stages where it's just foam, styrofoam that's been printed and hung, or here's sanding internally there. In between this state and this state where they're painting it, there's a liquid hot fiberglass. So there's like a whole moment where they have to like have these huge 2-story tall doors open. They have to get in like these almost like biohazard suits, and then they have this this gun that squirts out this like looks like chocolate. Really, it's like this really rich brownish reddish color liquid. It's liquefied fiberglass, and they just coat it, they just coat the whole thing in this chocolate looking goop, and it hardens, and then that creates that sound where if you've ever been to like a fair, or even on like a merry-go-round where they have like the horses, or the characters that you sit on the merry-go-round, and if you knock on them, you hear kind of like a clunk clunk kind of sound. That sound is like the hard exoskeleton, essentially, or the hard coating of fiberglass on top of some sort of substrate, some sort of foam, right, or other material. And that's why you hear that clunking sound, is because it has like a hollowness to it, and yet it has a certain rigidity to it that's like a shell. So that's exactly what it is. So the same kind of technique they use for those things, for theme park rides, and things that are made out of fiberglass. That's what we did for this guy. So this is a thin coating of fiberglass all around him, and then they go and paint it. And they do they get up on lifts, because it's all built up and installed kind of so that it's painted accurately, and then they disassemble it. Like I think I made a sectioning of his where the whole staff is, and the wrist here. I kind of had to section that off right here at the gauntlet. So you make logical breakpoints, wherever it makes sense to section it so that you can dislocate it, or disconnect it, and then reattach it later so you can ship it or move it. In this case, they had to move it throughout the facility, and they had to bring it in the front doors, but then they knew that certain width of the front doors dictated where we had to make certain cuts on the model. So that's why I had to work with a CNC engineer and building engineers, people who knew the building really well, to be like, all right, the blueprints say the doorways are this big, or they just go and measure them, whatever. And they would just say, all right, you have to make certain parts have to be this big and cannot be any bigger than X because it has to fit through a doorway or an area, a walkway, and then be assembled after that. So there was a bit of a technical challenge for sure. We had to like take into account all these different parameters and say, okay, X has to be fulfilled and Z and Y and whatever, and we have to follow the certain steps. So there's certain rigidity that follows, but the initial joy of it was that they said, don't think about any of that practically. Just create something based on the ideas that we have and the look that we want, and then just go buck wild with that, and then we'll reverse engineer how to make it work, that's like an artist's dream. So when you have that kind of freedom. So then here's a little guy and then the big statue, of course, and that's different work, echo work. So yeah, and then the finished product. I kind of wish I had more photos, or at least, I have them somewhere, but I wish I had the photos of the statue without everyone in front of it so you could see the base fairly well too. Another little subtle detail that I like to put in was like the footsteps here. It's hard to see in this kind of render and lighting, this angle, but in real life, they noticed, people loved that the footsteps were there in the sand. And so you could tell, like, again, just having some of that, because some people might sculpt this and put it there and you just have him standing there and you don't get the impression that he's near the water or an ocean, right? So I wanted to have there be sandy ground, and so obviously you leave footprints in sand, and so I did that here where you have the obvious impressions of his feet as he's stepped to where he is. Some people really like those little details when they walk around the statue, and they'd see those subtle things. So anyway, so that's a Moses statue. It was one of many pieces I worked on at Sight and Sound, and it was really rewarding to see it installed finally. It's a little personal fun, personal achievement. Sorry, I missed the chat here. Joey D was saying, how did you get involved with them? Did I know anybody? No, it's one of the few jobs I got, not through recommendation, but just they had a open application. They had a position opened, and they were looking for someone who knew ZBrush and Maya, and I was way more skilled in ZBrush than Maya. But that was okay because they primarily needed me to sculpt mostly anyway. So yeah, so I was there for almost a year, and it was in my hometown, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm sure you guys have heard that name probably a bit now in the news because of the shooting that happened there and riots that started up, and then they arrested everybody, set bail like $1 million. Ridiculous. But yeah, that was it was kind of a cold application, a cold call kind of thing. It just there wasn't, to my credit, or not to my credit, but to be honest too, I don't think there wasn't a lot of competition for people who know ZBrush in Lancaster County. So it wasn't like I was up against the guys out here in LA and people from all over the world who are like ZBrush experts. Not a lot of people are looking to move to Amish country, Lancaster County. It's not middle of nowhere, but it's like an hour outside of Philly. It's a beautiful place to live as far as like if you want to have a yard and raise a family and whatever. They have some pretty crappy local politicians as well, unfortunately, kind of like we do here in California and New York. But as far as the environment goes, it's lovely. There's a lot of rolling hills and farmland and suburbia. I grew up in suburbia with lots of giant grassy yard. I had to mow all the time as a teenager, and I'd run outside of take a run outside of our suburban what do you call it? Just the neighborhood, right? The development, and you'd have just cornfields, just like huge fields with cows in them, and farms and just all that stuff, all that classic, middle America kind of stuff, just farmland. And then you have your malls and your shops, whatever. So anyway, it's not like the most desirable place to live, but it's fine if you just want like a peaceful kind of out of the way town. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of competition for ZBrush artists applying for that position because there just weren't many to pick from, really, honestly. But thankfully, they liked my work, and I was able to give them a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of other work that I don't have in my portfolio on here that are of the actual show, because this was it's all a live action stage theater, right? So everyone's actors, real actors, and we have to create all these sets and props, and just kind of like what you do, like what people do at Legacy Effects, or at Aaron Sims. We'd create a lot of like puppets or things that people would get inside of and control. It was really cool. I mean, it was cool to see all that and kind of be a part of that. But it was also limited spectrum, because it's only biblical stories that they tell, and I have no problem with that. I mean, I have a background in Christianity, but it's also just very limited, right? They're just doing one kind of genre, and it's I love movies. I love Jurassic Park, Terminator, Predator, Aliens, all that stuff. So to be limited just to biblical stories was kind of getting, to just ancient history basically was getting a little old. So I was happy to kind of be thrown into the deep end. My manager and I eventually had we had our differences, and he didn't take a liking to me too much at the end. So then he let me go, which was fine, because I was like ready to be done, ready to move on. And so it was a weird parting of ways. Everyone in the department was like, "What the hell is this? This is not fair." But it was okay because it kind of threw me into the deep end and said, "Hey, all right, time to." I don't know. The whole thing was weird, man. It's like years ago, before I knew him, the woman who would become his wife, I wound up asking out. We went out on a date or two, and we had a good time, but we weren't compatible, and so we just parted ways. But then he brought that up, and I was like, he's like, "Do you remember so and so?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sorry," because it was like she was like 18 and I was like 19 or something. We were young. And I think it was when I was working in the hospital, actually. She was a nursing student, and so we met and hung out. And she still remembered me. But I mean, I was sad that I didn't remember her. But yeah, we just had coffee, nothing else. And I don't know, I think that seemed to put some weird thing in his brain where he just started to develop something against me. And it was bizarre because everyone else in the department loved me, and I got along with everybody, and all the other artists were shocked when they let me go. So anyway, it was a weird parting of ways, sadly. But drama, stupid drama. But I did a lot of good work for them, and I really enjoyed working with them. And minus my one manager, who I think he got shifted around somewhere else in the company now, of course. But I had good relations and good terms with everybody there, and left kind of sad because I was still having a good time at the time, but also saw that there was an end to that. I mean, there was an end to that road where it's like my creative abilities were going to be limited by the subject matter, and I was really wanting to, and I was flying out here a lot. I was flying out like weekends often. Whenever there's a big convention like SIGGRAPH or, whatever, Comic-Con or something, I'd fly out to LA or San Diego or whatever, and, was networking like crazy because I really wanted to move out here. So it was sort of like, I think he probably felt like maybe he thought my heart wasn't completely there because I was looking out here, even though I was giving them 110%. I would use my own time and money to fly out here and network in LA. But yeah, so there's things there that I think that he just, took a disdain toward me for some dumb reason. But there's the truth, there's the reality of it though, man. It's like, human beings create human problems. But yeah, it was quite a time to work there for sure. It was, for the time I was there, it was great, and I'm grateful for all the time I spent there. And yeah, it's just some shitty management here and there, but otherwise it was cool to have that experience, really get my feet wet. Really, that's where I started learning 3D printing was through them, because of those gigs and some other gigs that came to me through friends of mine there. I was able to buy my first 3D printer, which was a MakerBot Replicator 2, and then from there that kind of just quickly sped up my interest in 3D printing and my experience in that. And then also, of course, working in CNC and large scale productions was a lot of fun. So yeah. By the way, did you have the link of the video when you made this? Oh, of Moses? There is, yeah, it's a good question. There is a link. There was some video that they made a while back, and they put it up on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's still there. I can check quick. They did sort of like I think they did like a little time lapse of that. But I don't know if it's still on there or not. Let's see. Let's see. So there's the crew and stage management, behind the scenes. There's the trailer. More behind the scenes. Let's see here. you know, they have animal handlers. It was crazy the amount of work that went into this stuff. It was cool. It was cool. Let's see here. So yeah, maybe I'll share this one. This one's got, they're moving around the sets a lot by hand, although they had some computer controlled systems that would move a lot of the sets around automated. So when there would be a show happening, things would be moving around on these I forget what they were called. It's like a military grade system that they used to move like tanks and other things around with. But it was some pretty cool stuff, some pretty sophisticated stuff they used to move a lot of the sets around so that people wouldn't have to manhandle them at all. You know, I think there's still some sets that had to be moved by hand. But, so you see, I think in this video you'll see a lot of people, you'll see a lot of people moving things by hand. But this is, so this kind of shows you, like, you know, it's the finished product. I don't know. I know they internally had a video that they would show us, you know, kind of like ILM does for their own staff and many other studios do. They could produce internal videos that you'd only see when you're working there. And they had one that was like a cool time lapse of all the production of the Moses statue. But unfortunately, I don't think they have that here. So yeah, it's a little cheesy for sure. Is like it's the thing. There was a lot of cool work that went into it, but there's a lot of cheese, man. There's a lot of cheese. So it's a little, it's both cool and cringy. So there you go. There's that for the behind the scenes on the stage production stuff. It's the crew. So you get to see the finished work that we did. You know. What else? Some more behind the scenes, but this is just like the theater and again like setting up things on stage. Yeah, here you'll see. Okay, so here you'll see some more of like the military grade. You'll see these weird like wheels that have like these tubes. I forget what they're called, but like you'll see them kind of rolling around and moving some things here at one point. You'll see the CNC engineer here. You'll see Josh Ank, president, their president. He'll be chatting. Yeah, so then you'll see here. You'll see a lot more. This is the one I should have shared. You'll see here a lot more of the behind the scenes, a bit more of like the bare models and the props before they were finished. So as they're being completed, you'll see this more here. Just trying to check what else they have, if they have the statue in here. You'll see like all the you see all the stuff that goes into it, but there's a lot more behind the scenes of the prop production, which is the focus here, and costume design, blah blah blah. Fast forward through Josh. All right, so this is a little bit more insight. It's still not a ton, but here you go. This is a better behind the scenes look at some of the stuff. Let me see if I can get something on the statue. I don't know if they made anything else, or they put anything else out about the statue's production. All right, so this is just the statue, which is great. I guess at least gives you a more like in-person view of the statue. Just the statue. There's no one talking. There's nothing else. It's just somebody who filmed it. So that's cool. So here's just the statue. If you want to take a look at that, it's some attendee who took some video of that. Moses update. Maybe this would have. So yeah, they have these things that they would call them the show name and then update number whatever. And so I think maybe if I check some of that, maybe they have a playlist on their channel. I don't know. Would I recommend the Ender 3 from Creality? I've heard a lot of people like it. I'm just not. I'm not a big fan of FDM machines anymore, or whatever you want to call them, FFF. You know, fused gantry controlled printers, because they clog all the time, and it's just kind of a pain, honestly. I'm a bigger fan of resin printers. I mean, not that they don't fail either, of course, but I feel like it's just sort of more clear, like all or nothing. While with not always, I know, because randomly it depends on what you're printing. I mean, if you're limited on budget and you want something that's relatively cheap and affordable and like you can start with and experiment with, I think almost any half decent FDM machine is good to start with. And you can get some pretty good quality if you really tune them. You know, you really have to figure out how to work with your machine. And I learned that early on with the MakerBot, because I got some pretty cool stuff off of that. Josh D, or Joe D, sorry. You're welcome, man. It's nice of you to say. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see what ZBrush can do. You know, when you see all the different applications that it's applied to, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. Here's another video. You'll see some more behind the scenes on this last one here. You'll see. Yeah, actually, here you'll see. This is the one. Finally, found it. All right. So here you'll see about. This is the one about the statue. All right. Funny. So yeah, you'll see me working on the statue here. They even videoed me for their behind the scenes. So this is the one I should have sent you first. So you'll see the whole process, and you'll see statues behind the Moses statue that I made as well. Like men carrying, like classic Egyptian statues, like bearing different, you know, like cauldron-like shaped dishes and whatnot. So the first half of this video, I think, is like just a statue, and then they talk about some of the animals and music, scoring. You see the wraparound projection. I was the guy who had to, they have another artist, a friend of mine there, running on the treadmill, but they have this cool treadmill system that they took apart a regular treadmill and like wired up the controls to be remote, and then they would rotate this treadmill so that as you were in the stage, and the whole theater would have the cameras rotate virtually, so that you were sitting like you were stationary, of course, and then the wraparound projection would rotate, and in turn the on-stage treadmill would rotate as well, so that Moses is running out of Egypt, escaping Egypt. You'd see everything rotate with him, and it was a pretty cool idea. Like it was like very much like kind of taking. I think they could do an even better job now with like Unreal and whatnot, just because you wouldn't have to pre-render everything, so you could just experiment, iterate a lot quicker. But yeah, so I created a bunch of different statues that were in the background of the Egyptian projection as well. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot of cool elements that went into creating the digital backgrounds for this. Oh yeah, you'll see me working on Horus there too, the hawk Egyptian god. Yeah, some pretty cool stuff. So that's back September 11th, 2013. Wow. Yeah, so that's when I was there. Anyway, sorry. So there you go. The sets look amazing. Yeah, the sets are really cool, man. I gotta say, you know. I mean, I'm sure some people are not happy with the religious context or whatever, but you know, it's classic Jewish history and Christian embraced history. You know, so you just got to overlook some of the extra zealous stuff, but it's great. Yeah, it was cool to work there. It was for sure. It was cool to see it all just like come to life. You really have taken part in something that was so big and physical, like real. You know, not just digitally, not just a game or something, but something you could touch and see. And yeah, it was pretty cool. See with your own eyes, touch it. So yeah, that was my time at Sight and Sound. But I'm glad to be on the journey I'm at and where I'm at now. It was a good experience though, for sure. And it's stuff I got to put in my reel. Honestly, I haven't put together a reel in years.
But I've been dabbling with some stuff, and I have too much right now on my plate, and I just need to nail stuff off, check stuff off my to-do list right now, because I feel like I have too much going on at the moment. So I need to take care of some work, extra work. But anyway, we're past time, so I should let you guys go, and I need to take the dog out for his afternoon walk and get back to some other projects. But anyway, thanks for hanging out, everybody. Thanks for taking an interest in what I'm doing and what I did in the past. If you guys have any other questions, you can always feel free to email me if you have anything burning. I'm Daniel at lion-arts.com, and please feel free to follow me on Instagram if you haven't. I'm trying to grow that following a bit. I think I need to post more, of course, too. But that's me on Instagram at Daniel Lion Arts, all one word. And yeah, that should cover it. And of course, the site, if you guys were curious, if you wanted to see some of that work that I was sharing at your own pace, just go here. Yeah, that's me. So, all right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out for my afternoon. I guess maybe your evening or super early morning, depending where you're at in the world. Joey D, yeah, thanks, man. Have a good evening with the Ein. Thanks, yeah. Yeah, guys. All right, take care. I'll talk to you guys later.